Once upon a time, in a kingdom far, far away, lived a sweet and gentle woman whose cottage was known to many. Although no one knew her name, she was very popular and sought after throughout the kingdom. You see, she was the fairy godmother. That's right, the very person that we have all read about in countless bedtime stories. What you probably didn't know is that she had a daughter, and her name was Malia. Malia, unlike her mother, did not have any magical abilities. Despite many attempts, Malia did not have the magical touch. One day, the fairy godmother decided that she would go on a much-needed vacation. This left Malia a little worried, as she knew that people would turn up at their door asking for the fairy godmother's help. "I will not be gone for long, Malia," said the fairy godmother, "and I'm sure you'll be able to handle whatever comes your way." And with that, she grabbed her suitcase and was off. A day passed with no visitors, so Malia stopped worrying and enjoyed her time alone. The next morning, there came a knock at the door. A young lady was standing on the porch, looking sad and defeated. Malia explained that the fairy godmother was out of town, but the young lady insisted she needed her help right away. So Malia invited the young lady to come in. Ella told Malia that she lived in a house with her two older stepsisters. They were very bossy and often made Ella do all the chores around the house. When an invitation to the royal ball came in the mail a few days earlier, Ella's sisters were thrilled. They really wanted to attend the ball and tricked Ella into sewing beautiful gowns for them both. They promised Ella that there would be enough fabric for Ella to make herself a ball gown. But they had lied, and by the time Ella finished the gowns for her sisters, there was no fabric left. Her sisters laughed. "Oh, Ella, don't be sad. You are so resourceful. I'm sure you could make a ball gown out of a cardboard box." Ella was terribly upset and decided to go and visit the fairy godmother to see if she could help. Malia stared at Ella, wondering what she could do. She knew that if she tried to use magic to make a gown, she would probably end up with a pair of cowboy boots instead. "If I was to provide you with some fabric to make a gown, would you have time to sew before the ball tonight?" "Sure," Ella said, "but I don't have any money to pay you for the fabric." "Never mind that," Malia said. "I have exactly what you need." Malia pointed at the curtains hanging at the window. "Here," said Malia, "this curtain would make a beautiful gown, don't you think?" What Malia didn't tell Ella is that she really disliked those curtains and was quite happy to get rid of at least one. She hopped onto a chair and grabbed the curtain to give to Ella. "Here you go," said Malia. "Now, all you have to do is run home and sew as fast as you can. You don't want to be late for the royal ball." "Oh, thank you," said Ella. "You are a very kind and generous person. One day I might leave this life behind and open my own dress shop and not have to rely on anyone ever again. Thank you, Malia." Ella and the curtain left the cottage, and Malia felt pleased that she was able to help. While Malia was washing the dishes, there came another knock at the cottage door. This time, a young lady carrying a shiny red apple was standing at the door. Malia, curious to find out why this young lady was carrying this apple, invited the visitor in. Malia started by letting her visitor know that the fairy godmother was away. However, encouraged by her previous success with Ella, she asked the young woman how she could help. Snowy told Malia that earlier in the day, an old witch had come to her door, offering her a bright red apple. The witch then insisted that Snowy take a bite of the apple, and if she enjoyed it, the woman could bring her more to bake apple pie for her 7 friends. Snowy said the witch made her feel very uncomfortable. She didn't trust this old woman or her very shiny apple. Of course, she didn't want to seem ungrateful, so she told the witch that she disliked red apples so as not to have to eat it. She then added that she only ate green ones. The witch grinned at Snowy and told her she would return the next day with a bright green apple that was sure to please her. As soon as the old woman left, Snowy raced to the fairy godmother's house to hopefully find out if the apple was poisonous. Malia asked Snowy to place the apple on the table and said that the best way to tell if the apple was poisonous was to dunk it in a bubbling potion. Even though Malia knew that potion making was not something she was very good at, she decided that she would give it a go. She grabbed all the ingredients necessary and placed them in the cauldron. The mixture started to bubble and rise, and green smoke filled the air. Malia held the apple over the cauldron and muttered a few magic words for good measure before dropping the apple into the mixture. When Malia pulled the apple out of the potion, all that was left was the core. I believe this apple was indeed poisonous, and it's a good thing you didn't take a bite out of it. Who knows? It could have put you to sleep for all eternity. Yes, said Snowy, but what will happen when the witch comes tomorrow with a green apple? Will she not try to poison me again? Most likely, replied Malia. And therefore you must switch the witch's apple with one you prepared earlier. Genius, said Snowy. That way, if the apple is poisonous, the witch will be the one to suffer the effect. And with that, Snowy left the fairy godmother's house with a smile on her face and a cunning plan to outsmart the witch. Once again, Malia was able to enjoy some peace and quiet, feeling quite certain that Snowy would be able to trick the witch. Malia had only just finished her breakfast the next morning when once again there came a knock at the door. The person standing in the doorway was holding a shoe in one hand and wasted no time telling Malia he needed to see the fairy godmother right away. Prince told Malia that the previous evening there had been a ball at the palace where he was hoping to meet his future partner, get married and live happily ever after. However, that is not exactly what happened. Prince did meet someone at the ball, a beautiful young lady dressed in white, with whom he danced and laughed for most of the evening. But when the clock struck 12, she took off, raced out of the palace, leaving a delicate porcelain slipper behind. Prince was devastated. He didn't know her name. Why did she leave in such a hurry? And how was he to find her? Where did she live? Prince spent the following day looking for her and asking anyone who would to try on the porcelain slipper. But after hours of searching, Prince had not found her, and his search had brought him right to the fairy godmother's cottage. Malia felt sorry for Prince and thought that perhaps she would be able to cast a spell on the delicate slipper, revealing its owner. Well, it was worth a try, seeing Prince had done everything he could to find her. Malia picked up the delicate porcelain slipper, but before she could even think of a spell, the delicate shoe slipped out of her hands and crashed into pieces on the floor. Prince looked in horror. All of his hopes to find the delicate slipper's owner were crushed. Malia felt terrible and wanted to apologize to Prince, but instead she blurted out, "Well, there are plenty more fish in the sea." "What do you mean?" asked Prince. Malia made some tea and explained to Prince that perhaps he needed to go on a vacation, somewhere warm, maybe the seaside, and take his mind off this shoe business. After all, he had only just met the porcelain slipper owner, and for all he knew, maybe she would turn out not to be the one for him. I mean, who runs away at midnight during the royal ball without an explanation, or even saying goodbye? Seems a little strange to me, said Malia. Prince finished his tea and sighed. I suppose I could take your advice. Maybe go on a trip to the seaside. Prince returned his cup and left with a heavy heart. He had plenty to think about. Malia felt quite exhausted, and she decided that she would not answer the door to anyone else that day. No sooner had she made this decision than there came a knock at the door. Malia spun round and was surprised to see a beautiful mermaid sitting in a wheelchair at the kitchen door. "Oh, Fairy Godmother," said the mermaid, "I'm so pleased you're home. I desperately need your help before the sun sets." Before Malia could utter a word, the mermaid, whose name was Ari, started to explain that she had made a promise, a deal in fact, that she was now starting to regret. You see, Ari had a big secret. She had spent many months now swimming to shore to watch the humans coming and going at the palace of the kingdom far, far away. Ari would spend days there dreaming about what it must be like to be human, to dance and wear beautiful gowns. Oh, how she wished she could leave the ocean, even for just a day, and walk on land. Finally, Ari had decided to seek help from the powerful yet evil mermaid sorceress Marina. The sorceress told Ari that she could, indeed, grant Ari her wish to become human. However, this would come at a heavy cost. Ari would never be able to return to the ocean and therefore would never see her family again. She then explained that Ari would have just one day to live on land and make up her mind. "But why come here?" asked Malia. "I was hoping that the fairy godmother would be able to grant my wish to become human without taking away everything I love." Said Malia. "It seems to me that you need to think hard about what really matters to you. Surely your family would be devastated if you never returned," said Malia. "And why would you want to leave the ocean and the freedom to swim endlessly for a life on two legs? Believe me, if I had a choice, I would probably want to become a mermaid." "Look," said Malia, "here is what I think we should do." Malia took out a big sheet of paper and started to write down all the wonderful things Ari had mentioned about being a mermaid. It soon became clear that Ari had perhaps not thought this through properly. When she looked at the list, the reasons for remaining a mermaid completely outweighed those of becoming human. She realized that she was not willing to leave her family or her beautiful ocean behind forever. Grateful for Malia's help, she left the cottage, telling Malia that she would return to the ocean immediately. Malia was extremely happy to see her mother when she returned home. "How was your holiday?" she asked the fairy godmother. "It was delightful," she answered. "It is wonderful to be home, though. Here," she said, "these came in the mail for you." Malia looked at the flyer that was addressed to her. It was an invitation to the grand opening of a new dress shop, and the owner was no other than Ella. It said, "Thank you for your help. Couldn't have done this without you." The next piece of mail was a letter from Snowy. In it, she wrote that her wicked stepmother, the Queen of the Kingdom of White, had passed away after a short illness. Some said it had been food poisoning. Anyhow, since she had died, Snowy was finally able to return to live with her father and invited her 7 little friends to live there too. The last message was a postcard from Ari and Prince, who were happily living together in a beachside cottage. I guess Prince actually did go looking for other fish in the sea, thought Malia. The fairy godmother then asked Malia if anyone had come looking for her in her absence. "Well, just a few visitors, but nothing of importance. It was quite dull and boring." "See, I knew you would be able to deal with whatever came your way," said the fairy godmother. "Shall we have some tea?" The end.